Hi there, Mike Wardinski here with naturemike.com, and today I've got a really great video to show you how to make a custom signature watermark and or photography logo, very much like the one behind me here. And to start off the video, I'm going to show you how to make one with a Wacom tablet like this. And if you don't have a Wacom tablet, don't worry, because I'm going to show you how to make a watermark and logo with nothing more than a Sharpie, some plain white paper, and a free scanning app on your phone. But before we get started, don't forget to head over to naturemike.com for some how-to articles, private post-processing lessons, and some really great in-field workshops. Okay, so I've got my Wacom pen in my hand, and I can move my cursor around when I draw on the pad, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I need to create a new document. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to choose New. And I'm going to create a custom document with a width of 48 inches by 35 inches high. The resolution I'm going to set to 300, and I'm going to make sure the color mode is set to RGB color, 16-bit, and my background I'm going to set to white. And my color profile is going to be ProPhoto RGB. That's my standard color profile when I work with photos, so I'm going to go ahead and stay in that profile. And then pixel aspect ratio, I'll leave to square pixels, and then I'll hit create. Okay, so now we have our new document here, and the first thing I need to do is create a new layer. So I'm going to hit the new layer icon in the layers window, and there we have it. And I'm going to choose my brush tool. B is the shortcut for that. And my brush opacity I want set to 100, and I also want my hardness set all the way to 100%. I don't want any sort of feathering around the edges of the brush. Brush size I think I'll set to 130 pixels and hit return, and that's pretty good. One thing I want to do here is shrink the canvas size, so I'm going to hit Command minus on a Mac or Control minus on a PC just to shrink the canvas size. That way I'm not doing huge strokes on the Wacom tablet. And the last thing I need to do is change my pen color or my brush color. Right now it's set to white, so I'm going to just click on the swatch and drag it down to black and hit OK. And now we're ready to go. So we want to make sure that we have our new layer selected, not the background layer. And I'm going to come up here to the History tab and hit this camera icon and create a snapshot. That way I can easily get back to this point. If you don't have the history window already set up, head over to Window and make sure it's turned on right here. Okay, so now we're just going to do a couple of trial runs with our signature. And real quick, one thing I forgot to mention is that you want to make sure that this icon is checked. That way you can gradually build up your stroke. So the less pressure you have, the smaller the stroke will be. As I begin to apply more pressure, you can see the stroke gets bigger. So I'm going to undo that, Command Z, and now we're ready to go. So I'm going to come in here and do something like that. That looks pretty good. I think I could do better, but I'll hit a snapshot just so I can get back to this. And I'll come back to my first snapshot so I have a clean slate, and we'll try it again. That one's a little bit better. Again, I'll go back to my first snapshot and try it one more time. Okay, so that's pretty good, and maybe I'll try just one more. Okay, so now I'm going to grab layer 1, and I'm going to hit the V key or choose the Move tool. I'm just going to drag this up to the top a little bit. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to crop this, but eventually I'm going to add some text to it. So I want there to be a little more space on the bottom. So I'm going to hit the C key to get my crop tool, and I'm going to leave Delete Crop Pixels unchecked. That way I can recover this space later on. So now I'm going to go ahead and do a nice tight crop around my signature because I want this first file to be simply a signature with no text. And so there we go, nice tight crop, hit return, and you can see there's our signature logo, and I can turn the background off, and I could put this signature on top of any photo and use it as a watermark. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as is right now. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save this onto my computer, and I'm going to call this Mike Wardinski Signature. And I'll save this as a TIFF file. I can save it as a Photoshop file too. Either or will retain the layers. And then I'll hit Save. When you see this dialog, go ahead and hit OK. And this is telling me that including layers will increase the file size, and that's OK. So I'm going to check don't show again and then hit OK. Okay, now let's add some text to this. So I'm going to turn my background layer back on. I'm going to hit the C key to get my crop tool again. And I'm just going to drag down towards the bottom to give myself a little more room down here. Hit return. I'm going to choose my text tool. I could also hit the T key, and I'll click over on the left-hand side. And you can see my text box is really tiny because it's set to 12 points and I'm on a really big canvas, so it looks really small. So we're going to go here and we're going to type in 200 and hit return, and that's looking a little bit better. And now I'm just going to type in my last name. And to get out the text dialog, I'll hit Command Return or Control Return on a PC. And you can see the letters are a little bit bunched together right now. So I'm going to actually highlight these again. And where it says VA here in the Properties window, I'm going to go ahead and change this. In fact, I think I'm just going to type in 300 and hit Return. And that's a little bit better, maybe 350. There, I think I like that. Drag it over to the left. And I'm going to increase the size of this. To do that, I'll hit Command T, Control T on a PC, and just drag to the right. And I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe I'll just bring it up a pinch, like so. And actually, I think I'm going to drag it out just a little bit more. So I'm pretty happy with this. I'll go ahead and hit a snapshot. But I think we could continue on a little bit further and maybe add a box to this. So I'm going to hit the C key to get to my crop tool. And I'm going to drag out the edges a little bit more. Maybe something like that. Just so I have a little more space to work with. And now I'm going to choose my shape tool. I'm going to click and hold here. And you can see I've got a lot of different shapes I could choose from. I'm just going to go ahead and leave this set to rectangle. And I'm going to click in the lower right hand corner, drag up, trying to draw a nice even rectangle around the logo. There we go. And you can see it completely filled my logo. That's not a big deal. What we're going to do is we're going to come down to Appearance. We're in the Properties tab here and choose this sort of box with a red line in it. And so that means nothing's getting filled inside. And then we're going to come down to Stroke. We're going to make sure that's set to black. And then we're going to scroll down a little bit more. It's set to 4 points right now. I'm going to set this to 120 points because that's the same size as my signature, and then hit return. And there you go. You can see I have a nice box around my logo. Now lastly, I want to crop in the edges. So I'm going to hit Command or Control 0 to kind of fill the frame here. And I'm going to hit my C key to get to the crop tool. And I'm just going to drag these edges in as best as I can. Okay, this is looking pretty good. The only thing I'm noticing is I got a little bit of a kind of a strange line here from the end of the pen. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new layer, choose my brush tool, and I'm going to make sure I have white selected. I'm just going to kind of brush that to a finer point. And there we go. And I'll go ahead and save this file, save as. And I'll go ahead and keep the file name the same, except I'll put the word border at the end. And then go ahead and save. Okay, so you can see that creating a signature logo with a Wacom tablet is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But you can also create a signature logo even if you don't have a Wacom tablet. All you need is a Sharpie and a nice piece of paper. The thicker, the better, and ideally the less texture you have, the better, because we're going to be photographing this or digitally scanning it, and we don't want any of that texture to show through. Now, it's a good idea to have a couple of these sheets available because your first attempt might not be perfect. And one last thing to consider is when you're signing the paper, make sure you're using the bright side that's nice and clean. Sometimes the back side of the paper will have a little more grain if it's not a double-sided sheet of paper. The paper that I'm using is Epson Ultra Premium Presentation paper. I like it because it's nice and thick, and it's also a nice bright white surface. Okay, so let's get started here. So I'm going to start in the upper left-hand corner. That way if I make a mistake, I have a little more space to work. So I'm going to go ahead and try one here. Okay, so that one The marker was a little dry, so I got a new Sharpie here. And let's try this one. And maybe I'll start down here. Okay, that was pretty good. Let's try another. And I think I'm pretty happy with that one, so we're going to go ahead and use it. Now that I have my signature, the next thing we have to do is scan it. And to do that, I'm just going to use a simple app called Genius Scan. It's absolutely free, and I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video. To get started, I'm going to lay down my paper in a nice well-lit area without any harsh shadows, and then I'm going to open up Genius Scan on my phone. And now we're in the Genius Scan interface, and I need to click on the plus sign in the lower left-hand corner. That's going to allow me to create a new scan. And so here we are, and I'm just going to go ahead and line this up the best I can with my signature. And when I'm ready, I'm going to hit the camera button, which is the button with the 0 in the center with the line circling around it. And so there we go, we have our scan. And then I'm going to hit done. And now I need to email this to myself, so I'll go ahead and click the icon in the lower right hand corner, which is the square with the arrow coming out of it. And then I'll type in my email and hit send. Okay, so here I am in my email, and you can see I've got my signature scan right here. I'm just going to go ahead and click on this and choose download. And I'll go ahead and call this raw signature and hit save. Okay, now all I need to do is navigate to my Finder and choose desktop and find my raw signature. It's helpful if you organize by date modified. Since we just saved this, it will show up on top. If it doesn't, just go ahead and click it and then it will. And now we're going to open this up in Photoshop. So I'm going to control or right click and choose open with Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and now what we need to do is separate the signature from the background. And that's not going to be too hard to do. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our Layers tab, we're going to go to our Adjustment Layers and choose Levels. And that's going to open up the Properties window, and we're going to push our blacks and our gray tones to the right, and that's going to darken them up. The reason we're doing that is if we zoom in, you'll notice that this isn't a perfectly black line, which is what we want. So we're going to push this to the left, and you can see that's going to darken quite a bit. And then we're going to come over to the whites, and we're going to push those to the left. And that's going to just sort of feather out any bit of soft gray edge that might have been present on the outside of the signature. And we're going to push these basically as close to each other as possible. Something like that. And that's looking pretty good. I'll zoom out, Command 0. And now we need to make a selection. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Command Option Shift E on a Mac. If you're on a PC, it's going to be Control Alt Shift E. And what that does is it creates a stamp layer. So you can see I essentially have a copy of this background layer and our levels layer into a single layer right here. And so now we're going to make a selection. So we're going to go to Select, and we're going to choose Color Range. I'm going to go ahead and click anywhere in the signature, and I'm going to make sure my fuzziness slider is all the way to the right. By default, it might be somewhere closer to the left-hand side, and so just push it to the right. That's going to make sure you select all of your signature, and then hit OK. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit, Paste. Alternatively, you can do Command C and then Command V, and that'll copy and paste. So now I can turn off my bottom layers, and you can see there we go. We have our signature, but we also have a little bit of this mark over here. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that. To do that, I'll use the eraser tool. E is the shortcut for that, and I'll just kind of brush in there. And now we need to create a background, so that's pretty easy to do. We're just going to go to our layers window and choose the new layer icon. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and I'm going to choose white, and then hit OK. Now this made everything white. The reason being is that layer is on top, so all we have to do is drag it beneath our signature, and there we go. We have our signature logo. Now, if we zoom in here, we'll notice that these edges are not quite perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my magic wand tool, and I'm going to click within the signature. Now I need to make sure my signature layer is selected first, and then click there. And I'm going to go to Select, Modify, and I'm going to contract by about 3 pixels. So that's going to bring it in a little bit. And then I'm going to go to Select, Modify, and Smooth. And this is going to smooth out some of those rough edges. And the sample radius I'm going to set to 10 and then hit OK. And then I'm just going to do the exact same thing as I did to my initial signature, Command or Control C, and then Command or Control V, and then paste my new signature there. So if I turn this one off, or if I turn the old signature off, you can see it just sort of cleaned up the edges just a little bit. And we no longer need that old signature, so I'll go ahead and throw that away. And then Command 0 to fit to screen, and you can see I've got a pretty nice signature. Now looking at this, I can see it's kind of going up towards the upper right corner of the frame. So to fix that, I'm going to open up my crop tool. C is the shortcut for that, and then I'm just going to navigate to the upper right corner until I see that sort of double arrow C shape, and then I can click and drag downward, and that's going to sort of allow me to straighten out this signature. And you can see the original canvas is kind of tilted, but my signature is straight, and that's what we're going for because we don't really care about the edges of the original canvas. And then we're going to hit return, and that's going to commit our crop. And that's all there is to it. Of course, we could have added some more text and shapes like we did with the previous example to make a nice logo like this, but since I've already covered that in the first part of this video, I'm not going to go through it again. And as mentioned earlier, these logos can be used as watermarks, and I'm going to be creating a video in the near future to show you how to embed a watermark into your photos. So if you like this video and you want to watch that one, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel because I'll be coming out with a lot more tutorials in the near future. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, or if you'd just like to say thank you, those are always appreciated as well. And as always, don't forget to check out naturemike.com for some great in-field workshops, private post-processing lessons, and articles. I'll see you in the next video.